Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for having me out again. I actually wanted today to go over a new product that, well, it's not really a new product, but it's new to all Bright subscribers. It's the Remine Pro. So Remine Pro is a prospecting tool, and what's really nice about it is that it gives you a lot of really good functionality for you to prospect in specific neighborhoods or areas that you regularly farm in, and it gives you a more strategic plan to go about your farming. So instead of just kind of blindly canvassing a neighborhood with a bunch of flyers, you can at least be educated, take an educated guess using this product to really target those people who are ready to sell, who actually have the ability to sell. Okay, so that's what we're going to be covering this morning. And of course, if you have any questions on just Bright in general, we can take those questions at the end. All right, so is everyone logged in now? You're on your Wi-Fi. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and launch your browser and go to brightmls.com, and then from there log yourself in. Okay, so once we're logged into brightmls.com, you're going to see the home page. And on this home page, I just want to point out a few things because there are some functionality on Bright that are duplicated in Remine. So I don't want you all to feel like, oh my gosh, what do I do? These things have the same thing. You choose which one you want to use, okay? They're just going to be duplicate functionality. So the first thing I want to point out is on the main Bright website, on the left-hand side here, you're going to see in that gray section, there is a feature called your hot sheets. Hot sheets. And I remember a few months back, I was here and we covered hot sheets and Market Watch and we did all statistics and that type of stuff. So hot sheets is a functionality where you as an agent can go in and create up to 10 different hot sheets so that you can regularly monitor the activity in that specific marketplace. So for each of you, if you're interested in managing your hot sheets to create those 10 different ones, if you click on the little gray wheel right here, does everyone see the wheel where my mouse is hovering? If you click on the little gray wheel, yes. You should be on the main Bright site, just look on the left. Yeah, and that will take you to this screen, which is where you're going to manage your hot sheets. So to manage is where you're going to add a hot sheet, edit a hot sheet, delete anything that you don't want. So initially what you're going to see are the 9 property type offerings that this is regularly like, you know, you go in and you search for residential lease or residential sale, whatever it is. These are just defaulted in because we don't know if you work with commercial or residential or land or anything like that. So whichever property type is not relevant to you, feel free to delete, okay? So for example, if I don't work with multifamily, I can select multifamily from this list. I can then click delete, and then I'm going to confirm the deletion by clicking OK. All right, and then it's gone. So I can continue to delete off whatever I don't want. Anything that I delete off will then free up a slot for me to create another hot sheet for. And remember, I have a total of 10 that I can create. So if I wanted to do a hot sheet, I'm going to create one by clicking on Add, and that will then allow me to choose the hot sheet type. So if I only work with residentials and I'd like to create all 10 hot sheets for residential sales, then I would then select residential sale from that list. And that's going to tap into the database, which is handling the residential sale listings. Then I can name my hot sheet to whatever I want. So here I might want to be doing this for a hot sheet so I can see what's going on in Chantilly. Okay, so I'm going to call this the Chantilly hot sheet. I'll just do this. And we will just save it. So all I've done right now is I've said, okay, I want to access all residential sales, and I'm going to call it this. Okay, I haven't done anything else to the criteria, so that's what it's going to be called. Now, I can then go in and edit the criteria for this specific hot sheet. So that's going to be edit criteria. And that will allow me to say, you know, I want the ones in Chantilly, right? So now it's going to come down here to Postal City, type in Chantilly. We'll select that. And then if I wanted to, I can even go in and say I only want detaches, I only want whatever it is, right? That's totally up to you individually. And then we're going to hit save. So now we've actually refined that to include just the city of Chantilly. So how do I use my hot sheets? So the next time I log into Bright, if you click the Bright logo in the upper left-hand corner, it returns you back to the main Bright homepage. Next time I log into Bright, I'm going to see a hot sheet that was called Chantilly hot sheet. And if I want to see what has happened within a certain time frame, at the top of the hot sheet section, there is a gray bar. And if you click on it, you can choose a 24-hour, 3 days, 7 days, whatever. Okay, so let's see what happened in the past 7 days. So we'll choose 7 days and then click on where it says Chantilly hot sheet. And that will actually run the results for that hot sheet. And this will tell me in the past 7 days, these were all the activity that has happened. Some may come on the market as a brand new listing. Some may have changed statuses. Some may have changed prices. Okay, so these are all of the various activity. And then, of course, you can explore the listings and you can email them out or print them or do whatever it is that you want with them. So that is what a hot sheet is. Okay, now a hot sheet on Bright, and if you want more about this, you can always go to our YouTube channel and search for hot sheets, and you can watch all the training videos. This hot sheet, when you go to Remine, there is something on there which is called a market pulse, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Market pulse really does the same thing as a hot sheet. But I wanted to start here because I wanted you to recognize that there are going to be some functionality that crosses between the two different products. Okay? So let's go into Remine. So how do you get to Remine? From Bright, you can get to Remine a couple of different ways. You can either click into the search tab, and then in the search tab, if you look towards the bottom of that white menu, there is an option here to click on called Remine Pro. Everyone see that? All right. You can also go into Market Research. Up here at the top, Market Research, and then under Prospecting Tool, there's another Remine Pro. So it's the same place, whichever one you decide to click on. And once you click on it, it's going to open up another tab on your browser, and it's going to take you to the Remine dashboard. So everyone should be here now, okay? So this dashboard is going to give you a summary of your Remine account. So on this dashboard, you can add different cards. So I'm saying card, C-A-R-D, as in playing card, because each of these blocks is what they call a card, okay? So there's a button up here at the top that says Add New Card, and if you would like, you can click that open, and these are all the different types of cards that you can include on your dashboard. Okay, so there's a card where you can see their Twitter feed. There's a card where you can get listing updates. There's a card where you can see your engagements with your contact, so meaning you can invite your contact to use Remine with you, and if they do anything, then you can kind of see it reflected there. Bless you. My listings, of course, will give you a summary of your listings and your office listings. Market Pulse is going to give you that snapshot, like that hot sheet that we talked about. Save Searches is also going to be where you can access the saved searches that you've created in Remine. And then property notifications. If you saved specific properties, then as those properties change, maybe status or whatever it is, then it's going to give you an update. Okay, so that's what those different cards will allow you to see. You can have as many of these open on your dashboard as you want. You can see mine here. I've got a lot of them. Now, if there are certain cards that you don't want that's already there, you can go into that specific card, and if you look in the upper right-hand corner of that specific card, you're going to see a little wheel or like a cog or something like that, right? And so if you click on that wheel, there will be an option to delete that card. So then you can just delete it and clear it off. All right? So you can add however many you want. You can delete things that you don't want. You can even quickly duplicate cards that you might want multiples of. So let's talk about that Market Pulse. So if you have added a Market Pulse card onto your daily dashboard, that's going to be right here. One thing to note is that every time you add a Market Pulse card, it defaults to give you all of Bright. And so in the upper left-hand corner of that card, you're going to see where it says ALL, all, right? And so that Market Pulse is giving you a snapshot of the entire Bright footprint, which is a lot. So you don't want that. So in order to change that, if you click on where it says all, then it will allow you to add a specific zip code. Okay, and so that's where you're going to refine the data for that card to be more local. And of course, if you had multiple cards, then each card can contain information for different zip codes. All right, so feel free to play around with that. And again, you can check on our YouTube channel. We have Remine training classes on there as well and videos, and they will talk about all these different cards and things that you can do. Okay, so I just wanted to point out the daily dashboard because I think that's going to be very helpful for some of you if you prefer to see what's going on in your Remine account. Now, the meat of Remine is the searching and the prospecting. So that's where we're going to go next. If you look on the left-hand menu, you're going to have a tab called Search. So when we click on Search, it's going to take you to a map. And then on this map, let me first clear my filter here. I did a training yesterday, and we were doing some searches. So when you go to the map, keep in mind that this map is completely interactive. So not only can you zoom in, zoom out, you can pan it, just kind of move the map to whatever area is going to be relevant for you. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my map and drag it, and I'm going to zoom in, and that's going to drop me down several layers, or several views. And I can just kind of go in and determine the area that I might want to see. Okay, so that's one way of using it, is to go into the map. Now, when you're on the map, if there's a specific area that you want to concentrate on, in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see 3 icons. One is going to be your polygon. The second is going to be a rectangle, and the third is going to be a circle. So just like you can do on the bright maps, you can draw a radius, a rectangle, or a polygon to capture a specific area. Okay? So let's do something like a radius. I'm going to click on that, and then it's just going to allow me to click and drag to draw out my radius, the circle. And once I release it, then it's basically telling the system I'm interested in anything that's in that circle. Okay? So that's one way that you can search, is just kind of utilize the map. I'm going to clear that, and there's a little link in the upper right-hand corner of my screen. Anytime I add filters, I can clear it quickly. Now, another way to find the area is to just simply use the search bar up here at the top. So you can search for an address, a zip code, a school, a neighborhood. You can even search by people. Okay? So if you were to go in here and search by a person's name, I'll just put my last name. So M-I-N-G-O is my last name. Now, what you're going to notice is anything that you type in there, it's going to say, well, I found several options that contained what you typed. So in my case, there's actually cities with the M-I-N-G-O. There's a Mingo in Ohio, in Iowa, in, Arkansas, and all that stuff, right? That's really not what I wanted. I can scroll down. They have zip codes that are affiliated with those cities. That's not what I wanted. I can scroll down. There are some neighborhoods that contain what I typed. And there are some addresses with the streets. And then towards the bottom, there are people options. Okay? Of course, if you typed in a person's name, like Kimberly Mingo, it's going to go directly to that person, because very rarely will there be a street called Kimberly Mingo Street. Right? And so there you're going to have different options. Now, most of you are probably not going to search by people. However, you could. I actually had a story earlier this week. I was at an office out in Loudoun, and there was a new agent in the office who told me, I used Remine for the very first time, and I thought it was great. I said, great, how did you do it? I thought she was going to be prospecting. She had gotten a buyer lead from someone out of the state who was moving into Loudoun County. And she met with them, everything went well, and she wanted to send them a thank you card, but she didn't know their address. So she talked to her broker, and her broker said, let's try looking them up on Remine. Sure enough, she found them. They lived in some state, I can't remember, it was something like Wisconsin or something like that, way far out. And not only did she find them, she was able to find, of course, their property, and see all the details on the property that they currently own. So I thought that was really cool. And the moment she told me that, I said, that's kind of, an out-of-the-box way of using Remine. But yes, you can definitely use it to look up people. Now, the nice thing about the Remine database is that they have public record data from all across the nation. Okay? Now, you can only see listing data for your home MLS, but you can see public record data for all properties across the nation. So that's pretty cool, something that we can explore. So what we're going to do here, as far as the prospecting goes, I'm going to say, okay, I want to prospect for anything in my zip code, okay? Or you can do your neighborhood, whatever it is, but I like to show zip code because I like to show you how the numbers can dwindle down as you start adding in your filters. So what is your current zip code here, this area? 51? Okay, so there we go. We typed it in. Remember, just like we did earlier with the Mingo, it's going to show me any instance where those numbers appear in an address and whatever. Now, the very top one is the current match, which is our zip code, so we'll click on that. And you're going to see your zip code kind of drawn out on this map here. Now, on the map, you're going to see in the blue circles, these are all of the different parcels that are in that zip code. Now, these are tapping into public records, all the different parcels. These are not listings. However, if you wanted to look for listings, then up at the top, next to the search bar, there is a button for status. So this is where you can filter to say, I'm looking for listings, and I want listings that are active or coming soon or whatever it is, okay? If you don't want listings, then there's an option to choose the off-market. Off-market is just basically parcels that are not listings, okay? Now, let's move on from that. And I'm going to show you these filters in the map. So in the map, if you look towards the left-hand side, you're going to have all these different blocks. And there are quite a few of them. So down at the bottom, there's a little arrow in a button there. You can click on it, and it scrolls down, and it shows you even more filter options, okay? So let's go through some of these filters that you have. So the first one we're going to see is the one that says property value. So property value will allow you to filter and just say, I only want properties with a value of whatever. Okay, so if you want to target and get some of those high-end homes, you might want to say, I want a property value of at least $1 million, right? And that's going to filter it down, so it throws out anything that's less than $1 million. It's going to give you anything that has a value of more than $1 million, okay? You can go into a range or whatever it is that you might want to do. So that might be one way that you can use this to prospect. Another way would be, well, I want to prospect those who can actually pay my commission, right? So those who actually have equity in their home. So you can go in there and plug in whatever the minimum amount of equity may be. You can also go in and say, I want to capture those who have lived in their home or have owned it for more than 7 years. Right? Because those are all the ones that the people who are most likely going to be selling. You also have an absentee owner filter. So you can target the investors in a certain area, or maybe even the renters. You know, once you know those addresses, then you can send mailers to those addresses where they're rentals. You also have a flood zone. So the flood zone will allow you to, of course, to say those that are in a flood zone, not in a high risk, that type of stuff. So if you were working with a buyer who wanted to buy in a certain area, but of course they don't want to deal with the whole flood insurance and all that stuff, then you may want to go in here and say, I only want those that have a low flood zone risk or whatever it is, right? So that would be an option. Now you also have, let's scroll down here. There's something for building type. So building type, of course, you can say the condos, the single families, the townhomes. You have a land use, so you can say I want to target just land, right? Or I want to target commercial or whatever it is. You have mortgage rate. So mortgage rate and mortgage age will allow you to filter and find people who have a mortgage with, you know, an 8% mortgage or whatever it is, right? So if you were doing a co-branded mailing with your lender, this would be a good way for you to kind of, you know, get that set of data. There's the last sale price, which will allow you to just kind of go into a certain neighborhoods and, you know, just kind of filter out that way. Distressed deals. So obviously, if we're working with an investor, they may actually want to pursue some distressed deals because that's where they're going to get the good deals. And then there's also a cash buyer option, so you can add that overlay onto your map and see which properties are 100% equity, you know, where the cash buys, okay? That's more of an overlay, like you can actually see the parcels that are highlighted that are the cash deals. You also have another overlay, which is your Airbnb overlay. So Airbnb will allow you to see the areas where they're renting on Airbnb for certain amounts. So if you are working with an investor and they happen to purchase in a certain area and they say, you know, we'd like to rent it out on Airbnb, what do you think we can get for this? You can at least have some information to give them, Okay? Let's go up the list because there is one that I intentionally skipped. So you have also right here a filter for your cell score. Cell score. So that's towards the top of the list. It's right after ownership time. Cell score will allow you to overlay a filter, and you can say, I only want people who are ready to sell now. That's your high cell score. That's within within the next year. Within the next 2 years would be your medium, and then anything beyond the 2 years would be your low. Now, Remine determines the cell score based off of different factors that they know about the property. So all of these other filters that I went over earlier, such as the home equity, the ownership time, those are two of the factors that go into the cell score, right? So if you have an equity of let's say $300,000 in your house and you've owned it for 12 years, you know, that's probably a good time for people to start thinking about selling. Most people think about selling. I think it's like they've lived in the house more than 7 years, then they kind of move on, right? And that's usually the statistic there. So not only do they take those two factors into consideration, they also have other factors that they take into consideration, which has to do with all of the public data that they can get for every person and every property that exists out there. So it sounds a little scary, but you all know this because you are all consumers. We're all consumers. We consume stuff, right? Every time we sign up for a loyalty card, guess what? They know every single purchase you've ever made, right? And every time we click on things, oh, those ads that we see pop up, those ads trigger other ads that are similar because they know you like certain things, right? Believe it or not, every time you have conversations, your phone is listening to you, and all of a sudden, the next time you're on Facebook, whoop, an ad for Arizona pops up because you were talking about going to Arizona, right? So there is big data out there on every single one of us. There's also big data out there on every single property out there that exists. So what Remine has done is they have bought big data, which, you know, is public data, and they are able to create a story for each property that's out there, okay? So what that means is not only do they look at the equity and how long you've owned the home, those are all kind of, you know, basic things that we all kind of know, but they also know if these people have grown kids, their last child went off to college, you know, maybe they just had a baby, maybe they just got married or just got divorced, right? These, as long as it's public, has been publicly filed, those are all that are obtainable by vendors, and Remine is able to collect that data. And then they just basically create a story behind it. So that's where they're going to get their cell score from. The cell score is basically an educated guess. Based off of all these factors, we think very strongly that this person is going to be selling very soon, right? Or maybe they have a couple of years to go before they sell. That's where that cell score comes from. Now, what I really like about the cell score is if we do this example right here, if I just typed in that zip code, that was the only thing that I filtered by, it tells me that there are 6,934 results within that zip code, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I do not have the money to send out 6,934 postcards. You know, that would just cost me an arm and a leg, right? I would like to be a little more strategic in who I send these mailers to. So feel free to use the filters, depending on what type of mailers you're doing, to whittle down to get that set of audience. But if you want kind of a quick way of getting those leads, use your cell score, because we know it factors in all those other things. You can use a high or a medium, and it will narrow it down tremendously. So let's first try the highs. So we'll tick off high under cell score, and then click apply. And it's going to, oh, wow, look, it whittled it down to 1, right? Now, I also had other filters in place earlier, so, you know, these overlays and stuff, so they could be something that affects that result. When you get something odd like that, and this happened to me yesterday, what I did to correct it was basically just cleared all of the filters. There's a little clear filter link here. Clears everything off. Let me just make sure I take off that Airbnb, too. Sometimes that affects my result. I'll go back to my initial search of the zip code. Again, that's going to take me down to that 6,900. And then I'll go back and add in that cell score. We'll try it again. but still gave me 1. Perhaps it is only 1. Let me try a few other. Yeah. Hang on a second. Let me try it again. It shouldn't be 1. I know every time I do this, it's usually like, a couple hundred or something like that. Let me try one more time here. So let me go back to here. I've got my zip code.
Can I ask you a quick question?
All right. Hang on one second. Let me make sure this works first before I... Let me try both of those. Huh. Well, something's getting stuck here. Let me clear this, and I'll come back in to redo it. Who had the question?
Yes. So when you're talking about all the boxes and all the options,
yes.
and you're saying overlay and filters, is that the only place where you can click and then it darkens, right? That little box darkens. That's the only place where you can grab like 4 different criteria in order to find your homes.
You can filter from those different options.
Just those, nowhere else on the screen?
Well, there are other types of filters, like the buttons at the top of the screen where next to status and stuff. That would be like allowing you to filter if you were looking for listings or properties that has a certain amount of bedrooms or bathrooms. So yes, there are other types of filters. They would be up here at the top.
So you can combine.
You can combine,
Thank
definitely. You can also click into that advanced link, and advanced will give you additional criteria that you can filter by. Okay, let me go back here, clear this again. This happened to me yesterday. It kept giving me 1, and for whatever reason, I tried it again, and it gave me the correct results. So let's go back to our, was it 50? Oh, 51, okay. Maybe it's that zip code. Let's see here. All right, so now I'm going to go in and do my, if it does it one more time, I'm going to have to jump to a different zip code. It's still doing it. It's giving me this property right here that keeps coming up. For whatever reason, I have no idea. I'll have to talk to Remine about that. If you do encounter issues such as this or anything else, or if you have questions, Remine has a separate support center. Okay, they are a local company. They're based in Fairfax, so you could stop by their office if you wanted to. They're right in that Mosaic district off of 495 and 50. But they also have a great support center that you can contact through email, through phone call. Let me try a different neighborhood here, a different zip code. So I'll go into that. And we'll apply some of these other filters just so you can see how it works. Okay, so I'm going to do a home equity filter first. So in this 20148 zip code, I've got 16,204 results. And if I did a home equity, let's say I'm looking for anyone with at least 150,000 in home equity. I'm going to type that into the minimum box. I'm going to leave my maximum box blank because I just want the minimum of, and then I click apply. If you wanted presets, they do offer you some presets which are going to give you ranges, okay? That's completely up to you. I like to just do the minimum. So now we lowered it to 10,000. And if you continue to do this, let's also do an ownership time of at least 10 years. We'll apply that. We're at 3,000. Okay, so the more layers you add, the fewer results you're going to get. Let me try this one more time before I throw up my hands. There. Okay, so we applied the cell score, and the cell score of the medium and the high gave me 196. So not only is it factoring in all of the equity and the time they owned it, but because of those other factors, I've determined now that I've got 196 people that I can strategically target in my campaigns, okay? And what are those 196? Well, the corresponding list over on the right-hand side here will give you, those properties. Of course, we don't want to go through and see all of that. So if you want to just get a quick list of all of the properties, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, there's a tab. It will say map, and then right next to it will say list. Go ahead and click on the list tab, and that will take you, it will toggle you between map and list. So that will take you from the map to the list. And these are all of the different properties by the addresses. Now, what's really nice here on this view is that you can see a column right next to the address called status. So if a property is a listing, it will tell you the status of the listing. So in this example right here, that 4th property is a listing, and it's active currently. I obviously do not want to send anything to them because they're already listed, okay? Yeah, that's good. If they're off the market, they're not listings. Yes, yes. So as you go down, you're going to see, which ones are marked with different statuses. And of course, if it says pending and all that stuff, you don't want to send anything to those folks because they're already listed.
So when for the statuses that says canceled, closed, how far back does it go to? So if it says off market, how long has it not been in the market?
Got it. Good question. So any of those statuses, like the closed and the expired and the canceled, those are anything that has been that way for the past year. Yeah. Anything beyond a year, then it just moves to off market.
Okay, great. The second quick question, just wanted to make sure the values are based on the assessed values, right?
The values are based, I'll show you the value information.
Because
So
those
hang
who
tight
have
on
been
that.
off market, I was wondering what they are doing it based on.
Right, yes, that's a good question. So hang tight, I'll get you the answer for that. Okay, so as we're looking at the list here, you can, of course, click on any one of these properties to see the property detail. Okay, so if I click on this first one, it's going to take me into the detail page for that specific address. And the detail page is going to contain the public record information. If it also has a listing associated with it, then it'll show you the listing information as well. This one is an off-market one, so we're going to see public record. And then in that public record info, all of the info from the county, of course, the building features, the lot information, the parking information, and all that. It also pulls in the mortgage information as well. Remember, Remine not only gets records from the county, they also get they're also able to obtain like mortgage information and all that stuff from different title companies and different mortgage companies. Okay, so it's going to show you the active mortgage that's currently on that property and the net equity. Now, sometimes you might be looking at your property and you're saying, wait a minute, my net equity is totally wrong. The net equity is an estimation based on what they initially have for that property. So if I had a person who purchased it 6 years ago, and they were, their interest rate was like, I don't know, 6%, and they got a 30-year loan, and they were just paying the regular payment, we guess that it would be at this amount by now. Right? That's where they're getting that net equity from. If they refied and Remine was not able to get that refi information, they wouldn't know about it. Okay? If they did double payments, Remine would not know about it. So that net equity, take it with a grain of salt. It's an estimate. Okay? Yes.
Where there's a percentage there, the higher the percentage, that means the higher the equity they have, right?
Which percentage are we looking at
the
here
end
or
of the
down
page,
here?
down there.
Right, percent equity.
So the higher that percentage,
The more equity they have. Yep. So it's actually, if you look at it, there are 3 different lines. So there's the value, the loan balance, the net equity, and then that percent equity is a calculation off of those. Yes.
Does it show any motivating factors, like if there's a lien against a property or pre-foreclosure from the data?
Motivating factors into determining sell price, the sell score, you mean?
The seller being pre-foreclosure, or they got a lien against, maybe they didn't pay their taxes, or short sale.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, it does show that if it has been recorded against the property, they do have it. Are you? I didn't quite get the first part of it.
Well, does it show you any motivating factors against the property? The more motivated the seller is, the more you want to target that property.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. Well, it does factor that in as far as their sell score goes, right? It can move them from a low to a medium to a high based off of what has happened in that case, like if there was a lien against it or something like that. But that doesn't always give the realistic picture because someone could have a lien and just kind of, have a lien. But yeah, it does factor it in, and so Remine would guess that, yeah, if they do, then most likely they would want to sell. But we all know everybody's individual, so they're going to make their own decisions, right? Yes.
I think the question, or at least my question is there anywhere that actually shows those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does show it.
Does show
it.
separately, not just in the score, but actually
Correct,
shows
in a
it.
separate item, yeah.
Okay.
So if we looked earlier at the filters, let me go back to the map here and just remind everybody. In your filters, there is a filter where you can determine the distress deal. Okay, so yes, it does tie that in. So if a property is in any one of those categories, it has it right there. When you go to the property page, it will reflect it. Okay? Now, so this tab right here is showing you the public record information. As I said, includes the mortgage and the equity. You also have other tabs that you can see. So up at the top, you will have these tabs that kind of run across the screen, valuations, schools, and all that stuff. You also have the same tabs down at the bottom, so you can click on any one of these to see more, okay? So if you clicked on valuation, valuation is going to show you the value of this property as determined by Remine. So Remine has an AVM, an automated valuation model. So it's a program that's written, and it takes into account, you know, the sales price in the neighboring area, how long they've owned it, the assessment, and all that stuff, and it determines a value based off of that, just like those other websites do, okay? So what they're showing you is their guess at what the value is. So when you're doing a search right here, and you're using that filter earlier that I mentioned, which is property value, that's where it's pulling it from, is the value that Remine thinks it is at, okay? That also takes into account the assessment value, so that factors into their valuation model. Now, in addition to Remine's valuation, they're also going to show you the valuation coming from these additional sources: First American, Black Knight, Redfin, and Zillow, in some cases Zillow. Why do they show Redfin and Zillow? Is because your consumers know about Redfin and Zillow. So they're going to be looking, and when you go to meet them, they're going to say, well, I saw that my home on Zillow is $1.3 million. And you're going to say, that's Zillow. Okay? They're always off by 25%, right? And this is the actual value. So you need to be aware of what they're saying on these properties. You can always go to those websites and look it up ahead of time, but why? Remine gives it to you right here, okay? So that is why they present these other company valuations out there. But these are all just kind of, you know, AVMs. They're all just kind of guesses. Yes?
But in all cases, we need to make our comms as well.
Correct.
To determine if this number is...
Yes,
is
you
good or
definitely
not.
need to do your
Okay,
CMA on it,
yes.
okay? So the valuation from Remine, if this is your personal property, or if you had recently sold the property and you know that valuation is totally off, feel free to submit the actual value to Remine. Type it in and submit the value. That will help them correct the data. Obviously, if it's wrong by 100,000, you want to make it updated, okay? That will help them correct this property, and it will also affect how they will value other properties in the neighborhood as well. So if this property had to go up by 100,000 because it was really low, then of course the other properties in the neighborhood are going to be adjusted as well because the value in that overall area has gone up, okay? So make sure you do that, especially on your own personal property. Okay, the school. So when you go to the school tab, this will just show you all of the local schools. It does not determine that these are the schools that the kids in that neighborhood will be attending. So please be aware of that. Now, their school information is not coming from us. It is powered by a company called niche.com. And it's just like a great schools type of website, okay? They also have demographics, and that's going to give you general information, just general census information. So in this case, we've got 92% college graduated, 65% have children, 3.3 is the average household, 158,000 average income, and 30 is the average age, just in that area, that neighborhood that we were looking at, okay? The property history will tell you the assessment, the tax, the mortgage, and if the property has been listed prior, it's going to give you all of the historical listings tied to that property as well. And then the last tab is called Associated People. And associated people will tell you any people who are associated with that property. So it could be an owner, it could be a corporation, it could be a spouse, a child, a deceased relative. Whoever is receiving mail at that property is considered associated with that property, okay? So for example, my house, my husband and I, of course, are on there. His brother gets these random, I don't know, just like junk mail at our house. He lives in Wisconsin. And his parents occasionally get magazines. They're deceased, okay? But they all show up under my home address as associated people, all right? That's where this information is showing you. So I'm telling you this so that you're aware, if you plan on contacting them, that not all of them may actually be there, okay? They could even be a tenant who's getting their mail there. So what they show you with the contacts, though, if it's available, they will give you phone numbers. they will also give you email addresses as well. Okay, there's no guarantee that these are functioning email addresses, but these are the ones that exist that they can get for these people. The same with the phone numbers. They might have disconnected this phone number, but that's the one that they found that was associated with those people. Now, a lot of the phone numbers are going to be on the DNC list, so please make sure you are not contacting those numbers that are on DNC. And there's a big bright red bubble next to each number with the DNC next to it, so you're not calling those numbers. Okay?
There is more. It shows their buying score.
Yes. So the buy score is actually a good thing to bring up. Similar to a sell score, where it knows how long they've owned it and all that stuff and all their life issues and all that stuff, it determines a guess, right? The buy score is the same thing. It determines a guess, and it's based off of whatever goes on in our regular daily lives. If we just got married, we got divorced, we just had a child, our child moved away, whatever it is, right? It's going to just determine where you are in life, and it's going to make a guess and say, you know what? They're empty nesters. They've lived in the house for 22 years. They've got $400,000 in equity. It's a huge house. It's just the two of them. They're probably going to want to downsize, right? Or the other way around. They just had a baby. They're in a one-bedroom condo. Maybe they're ready to buy something, right? So that's where it comes from. Yes.
Is it associated with their credit score? No.
So good thing you asked. I don't know the answer for that for sure, but I have a feeling that it is, okay? And I'll tell you why. So hang on about maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll get to that point. Okay, so you can also add any of these people into your contacts. So there is an option over here on the left-hand menu to create an address book, a contact list of all the people that you want to work with in Remine. So if you wanted to add any of these folks to become your contacts, you just simply click on the button and then you add them in to the contacts. Okay, so then you can quickly access them later by going into contacts. Yes?
If you don't know who is actually owner of the house among many names, you can always refer the tax record to eliminate.
Okay, so the question is, if you don't know who is the owner amongst all these names, she's saying you could look at the tax record. Yes, they do try to flag it. So right here in the gray, it says owner. Okay, so it'll tell you which of those, excuse me, which of those names are the owners. Like this person right here, Kelly and Julie, they're not marked with owners. They might be children, or relative, right? But William is an owner and Diane is an owner because their names appear on the tax record as the owners. Now, there are several Williams, so it might be that this is the father, this is the son, but because they have the same name, they just said, oh, it's probably the same person. We're going to guess that they're both the owners, right? At that point, they really don't know, okay?
When you go to the previous page, when you have the list of the properties.
Yes.
Do I have to press this? No. There is a small square next to the addresses.
Uh-huh.
Can you just click on those all and add them to your...
We're going to get there. Oh, yes, you're wonderful. I like that you're moving ahead, but hang tight. I will cover all of that. Okay, just want to make sure that you all can understand what you're seeing on this property page. So there's a lot of details that you can go down into, okay? Now, in addition, let's say that this is a property that you want to go out there and pursue. This is the one that you want to have a listing appointment. You want to really actively pursue it. You might want to go ahead and determine a better value than the valuation that they give you. So in that case, you can move right into doing a CMA for this property. So on the left-hand side of the property, you're going to see 4 buttons. Okay, it says Add to Cart, it says Share, it says Print, and then it also says CMA. And if you click on the CMA button, it's going to give you 2 options. For those of you who subscribe to Cloud CMA, any Cloud CMA subscribers here? Okay, we don't have to worry about it. If you subscribe to Cloud, you click on the Cloud button and it launches you into your Cloud account. And it pulls this property to that account. If you want to use their CMA product, they offer something called CMA 360. That's part of their tool. You're not paying anything extra. So you go into the Remine CMA 360. It's going to allow you to walk through these steps, and they're just 4 simple steps. You're going to select the criteria to determine your comparable. So you're going to go in there and look, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, all that stuff. Add what you need to add, run a search, find the results, and then review the properties that you wish to then include as part of your comps, customize the report out, and print it. It's very simple, very straightforward. The process is just boom, 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 4 steps, okay? So very similar to what you can do in Bright. This is another CMA option. So I would definitely suggest that you actually do a CMA for a property that you're very familiar with and see what you get out of that report. You don't have to use this. Again, it's one of those functionality that is replicated between Bright, Remine, and HomeSnap even offers you a CMA tool. Whichever one you're most comfortable using is the one that you can continue to use. Okay? But do kind of play around with the Remine one. I think you may or may not be happy with it. That's totally up to you. Everyone is a little different. Okay? So that is going to be working with the individual property. Now let's go back to the previous tab, which is right here with our list. From this list, what do you do with these properties? Well, you can do a couple of things. You can say, you know what, that search that I did where I went to a certain neighborhood and I put in home equity and I put in all that stuff, I would like to rerun this search every 6 months, right? And I want to do a new mailing every 6 months or every 3 months or whatever it is. So you can save that. So in the upper right-hand corner, you see there's a button where it says Save Search. You can click on it and you can save it. It's going to save that filter, that criteria set that you used. So I'm going to give this a name, and we'll just call it it was a 20148. And we will save that search. Now, you also, in saving the search, have the ability to create an auto email with that criteria set as well. So then you can update yourself, you can update a client, whatever, okay? So that's another functionality where it overlaps with Bright. It's the same thing that we have in Bright. So that's your save search. Now let's say, for now, we actually want to mail to these folks. So in order to do that, I need to save them first, okay? So to save them, if you look on the left-hand side, next to the word address, up at the top, there's going to be a single checkbox. And if you click on that single checkbox, it will select all automatically. If you wanted individual listings, then yes, there is a checkbox next to each individual property so you can tick off the ones that you want, okay? Now, in doing that, see the one where it says active? I obviously don't want to send to that person, so I can then go in and remove that checkbox next to the one where it says active. If I just want to make sure that I don't have any others, because there are several pages here, I can go up to the status button up here at the top and say I only want to capture the off-market ones. So once I do that, then it's going to toss out, there were 196, now we're at 190, so 6 of them were listings. It tossed them out, okay?
When I go to the status, doesn't click anything. How do you get that?
You just, once you get to the status, you have to select it. Yes. Okay, so that's going to give me 190. I'm going to select all again. And then I'm going to add them to a cart. So upper right-hand corner, there's a button right next to Save Search. It says Cart. So we're going to click on Cart. Now you can have multiple carts, however many you want, and you can call them different things. So you can see these are some of my pre-existing carts that I've done. If you want to add a new cart, down here at the bottom, you just click on New Cart. New Cart will allow you to add a name. And you're going to click Add to that cart, and it's going to then drop in all those selected properties into that cart. Okay? Now, if you had created that Save Search, to retrieve all of your saved searches, if you look on the left-hand menu right over here, you're going to see at the bottom, there's your profile with your name. So if you click on your name on the left-hand side, it's going to open up a little menu next to it. And then next to it, you've got an option called Save Searches. So if you wanted to retrieve your saved searches, you just go in, click on Save Searches. All your previously created and saved searches will be here. You click on it to go in and run it. Okay, you can edit and do all of that stuff. All right, to access your carts. If you look on the left-hand menu again, the third tab down will say Carts. So we click on Carts. All of our carts will be there. You click on the one that you wish to retrieve, and then the properties that were stored in those carts will filter in, just like this. Okay? From here, you can then do other things. So let's say I want to capture all 190 of these. If I was working with a company that does all of my mailers for me, a lot of times these companies just need you to upload a set of data, the records, the email, the addresses that you want to mail to, right? So in that case, you can click export right here at the top. Export. That will allow you to give a name to your export file, and it will allow you to choose what columns you wish to export. So these are all of the columns that it will automatically export unless you turn off the ones that you don't want, okay? So if I don't want the zoning, I'm just going to click on that and slide it over. If I don't want the value, I'm going to click on that and it'll slide over. If I don't want the absentee status, I'm going to click on that and it will slide over. Anything that's gray will not export. Anything that's blue will export. Okay, so if you're doing something for your mailing company, obviously you want to turn off all of the property detail information and just give them like the property address, the mailing address, the owner information. That's it. Okay, so you'll have to make a choice. And then once you're done, you can click the export button and it'll create an export file. Now the export file may take a few minutes to do. So it will tell you, once you click, I didn't do it, but once you clicked on export, it'll tell you right here that it's exporting. Okay, there's a little bubble that pops up. And once your export file is done, then in the alerts section on the left-hand corner here, you'll see a little red indicator that says, you know, your export file is done, right? It just takes a couple of minutes, but in the meantime, while it's doing that, you can do other things. All right, so let's do other things. Let's say that we already have our postcards created. We've already got really nice ones. We just need the mailing labels. The mailing labels, right? So we're going to go to More and Print Mailing Labels. More, Print Mailing Labels. That's going to allow me to go in and say, well, as far as the recipient goes, do I just want it to say the property owner's name, or do I also want it to include current resident, right? So in the case where it's a rental, we might also want it to be current resident. Whatever, you choose. And then the address, you can determine, do you want it to just capture the property address or the owner's mailing address? So if they're an absentee owner, you'll want to do their mailing address, right? And then you can also say what type of labels. So I've got the Avery 5160, which is our regular labels. We've got the Avery 5161, that's a different size, and then the Avery 5162. So those are all different label options that you can choose from. Once you're done determining all of these, go ahead and click Print Label. That will generate the PDF for your label pages, and then you can view them, and then you hit Print. Okay? So it's going to look something like this. Now what I would recommend, this one has got 7 pages. Sometimes our printer setting might not be aligned with the label edges, so I always like to do one test print, right? One test print, hold it up to the label, make sure everything is aligned. Sometimes you may have to adjust your printer, whatever it is, so do what you need to do, and then you can get them onto the labels. So this process is very seamless because not only can you go in and prospect for exactly what you want, but here you can go in and just generate those mailing labels right from there. Okay? Now I do want you to keep in mind that that too is a functionality that is duplicated in Bright. So Bright offers you a similar functionality in that you can go in, you can search for a set of public records, right? And from there you can print mailing labels. So it is very seamless as well in Bright. However, in Bright, it takes an additional step to determine if the property has not already been listed. Right? So there's the painful way where you can go into each parcel record and check to see if there's a history tied to it. Or you can kind of flip it over to the listing side. There's just extra added steps. You can see what we did in Remine here. It was all just boom, 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 boom. The steps made sense, right? Everything was just already there for you. Okay? So I would definitely use Remine if you have any prospecting needs because of the ease there. Yes?
Kimberly, can we export to Excel?
Can you export to Excel?
Yes.
The export is automatically into CSV, which in most computers default to Excel.
Thank you.
Yes. CSV is a universal file type, so you can import it into other programs as well. Okay? No. So the export file from here is, let me just do one for you so you can see. It automatically creates a CSV file, so .csv, comma, separated value. A CSV file is just a generic file type. Most computers, if you open up a CSV, it opens up Excel. That's just the default. In some cases, you can use that CSV and you can import into other programs, like if you use Top Producer or if you use any websites. You know, a lot of times they're looking for an import of a CSV. They're not looking for an import of an Excel. Okay? Yes.
Really quick, can you get back to the part where you went to the labels when after you did the search and you added them to your cart? I got lost in that transition.
Okay, so once you do your search and you get your results, you select all of the results, and let me see if I can get back there. Here it is. Okay, so we're going to get to our results. You select all of the results that you want to keep, and then the upper right-hand corner, you're just going to click on the button called Cart. Okay, and you're going to name your cart, and then it's just going to store it there. To access your carts, in the left-hand side, you're going to see a link that says Carts. Okay, you're going to click on. See how it just downloaded and it gave me a little message that says your download file is ready? Okay, it also alerts me down here with the little red bubble that there's one action that's ready. Okay, so once I go into my downloaded file, let's see here. See the CSV is down here at the bottom? So if I click on it, let's see what it does on this computer. Well, it also pops into Excel. So a lot of computers would default the CSV into Excel. Okay? So that's how it's going to look like. All right, let's get back to where we were. Okay, so now we go back into our cart, and then we can do those things. We can export, we can do mailing labels. The other thing that we can do is right in between export and more, there's an option that says send mailers. So send mailers will actually take you to a company that they work with for your mailings. It's Rocket Mail is the company name. So if you want to use Rocket Mail to do all of your mailings, then you can click through and have them take care of it. Okay? They are just like any other marketing company. You go in, you upload this database. These are the set of records that you want them to physically mail to. You select the type of mailers you want. You can choose, the postcards and the style, how often you want them to mail out, and they handle everything. Now, there's a fee associated with that part, okay? But up to that part, everything on Remine is free. All right. Any questions then on what we just covered as far as the searching, using the filters, getting our results, adding them to carts? Here, yes.
At the top it says share cart.
Yes.
Is that sharing with client?
Yes.
Okay.
That right here. You can share carts. You can also share individual properties as well. So if you're working with somebody, anybody who's in your contact section, you can share it with them.
So since some of us work multi-jurisdictional, if you're looking at a specific property that has a high resale value, high equity, would any of those listings show you properties that people own out of state? Meaning a target of this home has a high resale, lots of equity, they own a property in Florida, which potentially they are probably going to sell that property and move to Florida. Does it indicate any other properties owned out of state?
That's a great question. It does. So but it's kind of a little bit, you have to think of it a different way, right? So the properties that a person owns is associated with the contact itself. So if you are looking at, let me see if I can do it kind of the backdoor way, and then I'll go back and explain what I mean by this. So if I clicked into this particular property, we're going to go down to the associated people, and we're going to see who owns it. Right? Now, all of the people down here, you can click on their name. See how they're there? You can click on their name. Well, should be able to click on their name. Why is it not clicking? There it is. And it will then show you all of the properties that are associated with those people, right? And again, it could be that a previous resident that they rented or whatever it is, they were associated with it, they got their mail there. It could be that. But yeah, if they're an investor and they own several properties, it would definitely show up when you click on their name. It will give you all of the other properties that they own. You're welcome. The other way to do that is if you know a specific person, you can do a search for their name. Click on that person's name, and then it will also show you all the properties associated with those people. Okay? All right. Any other questions on our search and our filtering and working with those properties?
Also, to answer your question, probably if you go to the absentee's owner and click on that, then they will tell you they own somewhere else.
That's exactly it.
And this
Yeah. So
property.
any contact, any associated people or person, whatever it is you're looking up, it will tell you all of the properties that are tied to that account, to that person. Okay? All right, so let's move on to talk about contacts. So contacts is, of course, where you're going to go in and you can add your contacts so that you can work with them. Now, remember, Bright also allows you to add contacts. So if they're just a regular buyer that you're working with and you're sending listings to them using Bright, you don't need to do it in Remine. You got to pick one and do that one, okay? If, however, they're not seeing any listings and they're an investor and they want to actually be able to access properties that are not listings, just like I showed you the off-market ones, you can choose to share that data with them. And so in that case, I would add that contact into Remine, and then I would set up a search in Remine to go out to that contact. And the search can be all of the properties in an area that meets their investment requirements, you know, with they're a distressed deal that has a certain amount of value, whatever it is. And then they can actually see those properties. And if there are specific ones that they're interested in, then you can kind of help them, you know, pursue it, okay? So there is that option there. Just be aware, a lot of the data that's in Remine, because it's public data, it's also accessible by your clients. So you got to know your clients, and you got to trust your clients that they will do the right thing and use you for these deals, okay? Because there may be some people who, you know, if they're kind of savvy, they might want to pursue it themselves, okay? Yes.
Like Bright, can the client, after they have access, make changes to the search and stuff like that?
Yeah, they
or
can do their own searches.
So they could set up a
yes,
whole new search.
They could.
So you just give them access once and they can go
Yes.
in.
It's kind of like for some of you who have websites and you invite somebody to be able to use your website, they're using your website to search. That's basically what you're doing with Remine. You're giving them another source to access. Question there? Oh, okay. All right. So when you go in to add your contact, you can add them individually, right? Click on Add Contact and plug in that information. You can also upload a group of contacts if you wanted to. So remember, when you're uploading, it's going to be looking for a CSV file to upload, okay? So you can do that. You also have, after you send out the, after you added them in as your contacts, you have the ability to invite them as a user. So in that case, you're going to click Invite. And what will happen is they're going to receive an invitation via email. They're going to be asked to create an account on that invitation. And yeah, exactly. And once they do, they are then tied to you. So anything that they're searching for, that they're saving into their cards, their saved searches, you actually see all of that, okay? Because they're your client. In addition, once they've created an account, there is an optional process for them to look up their credit score. So your question, ma'am, about is credit score tied into the buy factor, I personally believe it is because of that step. So in the invitation, they can create an account, and once they create an account, they have the option to check their credit score. And it's a soft credit pull, meaning it doesn't ding their credit, right? It's not going to give them the exact score. It's going to tell them what range they are, if they're fair or high or whatever it is, right? That result, as an option, your client has the ability to share with you. So, you know, there is that kind of tied into it as well, okay? That part is optional. They do not have to do it, and it clearly states that it's optional. So some people, once they see credit score, they're just like, ooh, you know, but it very clearly states that this is optional. If they wish to do it, they can, okay? All right, so that's your contacts. Now, lastly, I also want to show you, there's a piece here in Remine which is Docs, D-O-C-S, and it's their document manager. So you can use this as a document storage if you want to. Maybe there's certain files that you want to store on here. So then you can access this wherever you are just by logging into your Remine account. You can also use this to set up electronic signatures. So this will function very much like DocuSign, AuthentiSign, all of those different electronic signature programs. You upload your document, you insert the fields where they're going to sign and initial and all that stuff, and you email it out. And then it collects all of the electronic signatures for you. Okay? So that is another piece. Now, you don't have to use it. It's just something that they include if you choose to use it. And that's going to be accessible right here on the left for docs. So a couple of other things we want to just cover. As far as support goes, remember I said they do have a separate support center than the Bright one. If you were to call Bright with a Remine question, you may not get someone who's knowledgeable. And so they may send you over to the Remine support center. So if you have questions from Remine, click on support down here at the bottom and go to support center. That will take you to this page. You can search for whatever it is that you're looking for. You can also go in and you can watch their training videos. They've got free webinars every week. They've got an email and a phone number, so you can reach out to them that way. There's also a companion mobile app for those of you who like mobile apps that you can download to your phone, and then you can quickly access your Remine account from your phone or your mobile device. Okay? That is it as far as the Remine product goes. Any other general Remine questions? Yes?
When we download the app, or if you want to access it directly, our ID password is the same as...
The same as Bright. Yeah, if you have any questions, just contact support and they'll help you. Okay? All right.
Thank you, Kimberly.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. If you have any other Bright-related questions, let's go ahead and open it up to that so we can address those.
CMA on Bright, do you have a video on that?
We do. So if you're interested in learning more about anything Bright-related, you can always go to, this is in my website, but let's go to YouTube. I usually have a link that takes me directly there. So if you go to YouTube, at the top, you can search for Bright MLS. And if there's a specific video that you're looking for, let's say, I mentioned hot sheets at the beginning, you can type in Bright MLS space hot sheet. Okay? CMA. Bright MLS space CMA. And that will take you directly to the videos that we've got tagged with that topic. And we'll do just that right here. Okay? And so you can go through and watch that. If you go to just our channel, which is just Bright MLS, you can also choose to subscribe. And then anytime we post new videos, we'll get alert and notifications on that. You can, of course, through our channel, watch all of the different training videos that are available for you. And you can just go through and learn something new every day. Yep. Okay?
Also on Bright, there is training. On the left side.
There
On
is.
the right side, sorry, it says training, and there's
Right.
videos.
So if you're interested in other ways of accessing it beyond YouTube, they're under support. We've got a lot of different options here. You can go into our knowledge base where it says search help topics. So similar to the Remine, where you can type in the topic that you want, you're just going to type in the topic that you want from Bright, and they'll give you all the resources, the videos, the articles, the FAQs, that type of stuff. Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.